There we go.
Have you found me?
Yes, yes, we
Oh,
did.
how great. I'm sorry to be such a Luddite, but fortunately my partner has found you.
Good. Oh gosh, it's taken me a while to figure all this out.
Yeah. Hi, Karen.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to have you, John. It's such a
Well,
pleasure.
thank you.
Yeah. I've been absorbed in this book. I was just while we were waiting for you, I was sharing it with the audience. It's probably coming out backwards through the live, but
Yes, the cover comes out backwards.
it's right for the role. And John, now that you're here, I just want to look down and read a little bit, read the description about you on the back of the book to give those who don't know you context. They're going to be people who are coming on live to listen to us, and then we're going to post this interview in other places. So the people who can't
Great. I
get it live.
appreciate it. Thank you
Oh
so
my
much.
goodness. Oh, it's my pleasure. Let me read so people people who don't know who you are have a little sense of it. So John Frank, is it Levy or Levy? I've always said Levy, but I want to make sure I'm not screwing it up.
You are screwing it up. It's Levy.
Levy, see? Thank you. John Frank Levy is a four-time Emmy Award-winning casting director. He has cast such iconic shows as China Beach, ER, The West Wing, and Shameless, as well as dozens of other TV series, miniseries, TV movies, digital series, video games, and feature films. Levy is also a five-time winner of the Casting Society of America's Artios Award and the recipient of its prestigious Hoyt Bowers Award, given for excellence in casting and outstanding contributions to the casting profession. After decades at Warner Brothers, Levy became vice president of casting for John Wells Production before launching his own casting company. Right for the Role is his first book. And I want to read something else, which I find beautifully moving. John Wells writes, John Frank Levy is a maestro, a savant. Like a musician with perfect pitch, John can hear the talent underneath a terrible audition. He speaks a language that we don't all speak, and he translates that language into performance and something transcendent. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have we have Hollywood royalty with us on tonight. Yeah. And John, I am so moved by your book. Before I start asking you questions and let you be the one doing most of the talking, I just want to say that for myself as an actor and a coach and a director, but mostly as an actor, when I come into a room for years and years, we don't have time to get to know you guys, and you guys are doing your job. And so we come in and, you're getting us in and out very kindly. But I usually, don't have the opportunity to get to know anything about you guys. And usually the casting directors wants to get things moving, holds the space, but is kind and efficient. And oh God, John, reading this, the humanity that you've shared, and the vulnerability that you have shared, and it feels to me like, I mean, you've shared things about your marriages, you've shared things about your son with leukemia, you shared the ups and downs of the business, and those are things that I never would have known or even guessed. And as actors, I think we tend to, project a lot onto casting directors, project authority figures, project our parents, project our bad teachers. And, I think we forget how deeply human casting directors are and what artists you all are. And
Well,
you're
thank
right
you,
as
Karen. I
artists.
really appreciate that because that was really the focus of the book in some ways, was to try to make actors understand that we're not there to block you, and we're not some monolithic wall that you have to overcome, but we're people and artists and collaborators, and to think of us as working together, I think will benefit actors, and it's certainly something that I tried to do in my work as a casting director, and also greatly thanks to Trudy Roth, who I wrote the book with. She kept saying, "Hey, John, your stories are good, but you got to make it more personal." And I kept saying, "Oh, I don't want to." And but eventually I did, and I thank you for recognizing the value of humanizing casting directors. We are artists and people, just like you.
Yeah, I mean, without being overly dramatic, of course, I'm an actor, so I do tend to get a little dramatic, but it was life-changing for me. Literally, it was life-changing for me to read your book. And
Oh,
I
great.
think I will never see, I mean, I have friends who are casting directors, and I know how human they are, but it's just, when I walk into the room from now on, I won't be projecting that thing on you guys. I'll see a collaborator and a human.
Yeah, and Karen, therefore, you won't be giving up your power. You'll be working together with someone who cares.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the title of your book, Right for the Role. I love it because, it's we're always asking ourselves that question, and I feel that it's just about you sharing your journey of you, so you as an artist, as a human being, as a humanitarian, because I really understand you as a humanitarian as well. And you're it feels like you're sharing your journey in your own role.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so grateful to you, Karen, because you got it. Right for the role, of course, is a kind of a actor joke almost.
Yeah.
Y'all think you're right for every role, but really the book is about my finding the role that I was right for, and reinforcing to all of us that we're on a journey of self-discovery and self-actualization, so that we can find the place where we can uh, bring our best selves and create excellence and the opportunity for excellence. And um, the book is really about my journey to find the role I was right for, and I'm so grateful that I did.
Mm. When you wrote the book, I was asking myself as I was reading it, as actors, when we work on a role, um, or a project, that it always brings me something. And as a, creative person, did writing this book, what did that bring you? I would
Well,
imagine it
yeah,
brought a lot together.
yeah, I mean, actually, when I started writing it, I thought, well, someone I did a podcast with said, your stories are funny and you're smart and you're verbal, and there might be value in you doing a book. And I thought, and then I met Trudy Roth, and she gave me a book that was about writing about yourself, and that was very instructive.
Oh,
And then during the course of our interviews, which started during the pandemic exclusively on Zoom, where she made me send her a memory 2 or 3 times a day, and then eventually we met in my backyard, 10 feet apart with masks on, and I told her stories. But eventually she kept saying to me, "Got to make it more personal. Got to make it more personal." And I kept saying, "I don't wanna," and she kept saying, "You gotta." And eventually I did, and then we found that the book wasn't just about all the great television shows I had the honor and privilege to work on, but it was about my journey to find the role I was right for. And the title then just emerged because Right for the Role is the journey I was on, and the journey I'm so grateful to have landed on, and the opportunity to do my best work, be my best self, and create opportunities for y'all to be your best self and do your best work.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about some of the things you share in the book. And this book is available on Amazon. Is that correct, John? That's right.
Yeah, it's on Amazon in 3 ways. It's a ebook, and it's a paperback, and it's a hardcover. It's also available on my website. I'll mail you an autographed copy if you mail it, if you order it on my website, and that way Jeff Bezos doesn't get all the money.
That's a good idea. Great, great. What I'd like to do is kind of just, there's so many stories and anecdotes that are just very moving to me and fascinating. So I want to take some time and, you know, talk about some of that, and then we'll switch over towards the end to ask questions that might be interesting for people, you know, people who are in the business and actors like myself.
Great, I'm open to all of that. Thank you, Karen.
Awesome. So what I want to start with is if you could share kind of what brought you to this. I mean, I feel like, and the way you talk about what you do in your book is, it's not just, I understand that, you know, you're not just a casting director, but you started off as a kid. I mean, you went to Martin Luther King's march when you were a teenager. And I feel like part of your journey is just this, you know, walking through life with this human heart and looking for how to have an influence, how to touch people, you know. And I don't know if you can share a little bit of that, you know, from the book. I mean,
Sure.
start off maybe with the Martin Luther King, because that was pretty impactful to me. That I know you might not have been awake for the whole speech, but it was impactful to read that you were actually there and how that.
Well, thank you.
The family you grew up with.
That's a tribute to my parents, who were, you know, progressive people, and I had a progressive childhood where I was exposed to all kinds of diverse and inclusive people before those were words that we used. And so it made sense for me to get on that bus in Harlem with my cousin Judy and sing "We Shall Overcome" off key all night long. And I got to Washington, D.C. early in the morning, and we were early enough so that we got a seat. I'm a theater guy, so we were just down right of the stage. And there were early speeches that I was attentive to. My throat was sore from singing off key all night. And then Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to the microphone, and he began perhaps the most important speech in the civil rights movement ever given by anyone. And I promptly fell asleep and had a dream of my own, which, given that I was a 16-year-old boy, probably had more to do with a cheerleader at the basketball game than it did with civil rights or progressive politics. But I, of course, have since listened to the speech maybe 100 times as kind of penance for having slept through the original. Yeah.
So that was your parents who kind of brought you in. I mean, the way you speak about your mother, I mean, in your book, the respect that you pay to women in general in your book is just, it's moving to me. And the respect and gratitude you have for your mother. It sounds like she was the first one who took you to the theater, or your parents did?
Oh, yeah. She took me to things I had no business going to. You know, off-Broadway productions of Edward Albee and Ionesco and, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff that I didn't even know what the hell it was. But also she took me to the early production of Hair, and a virtually naked woman was up the aisleway, and I was on the aisle, and it was pretty embarrassing to see my first naked woman sitting next to my mom.
But I guess it was encouraging in terms of you wanting to go back to the theater.
Absolutely. Over and over, and I wanted to see hair every week.
And so how did, for the audience, it sounds like women were sort of instrumental in you getting involved with theater, from high school to college.
Yeah, I had a lot of great guy friends, and through sports and other things. But and I don't think it's surprising or unusual, but the people in my life that were the most influential and the most powerful forces of change and growth were women, and especially my mom, but also a woman who was employed by my parents to take care of my brother and I, Millie, and later on, as I grew, I gravitated towards complicated, and maybe other people might have called them difficult women, but they weren't difficult for me. They were spectacular.
Mm. Mm. Thank you. And I think you wrote in your book that you got into theater because you liked a girl. It was a girl in high school who was auditioning
Yeah,
for a play, and you auditioned for the play, and you got the lead, but she didn't get in.
yeah, exactly. And she's still to this day. She's gone on my website or various places and said, "I was that girl." Um, I'm friends with her today still, and um, uh, damn it, nothing ever happened.
And you did theater through high school and college. And then you talked about how you really gravitated towards directing. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Well, I'm not sure, Karen, whether I gravitated towards it or it gravitated towards me. I kept finding myself, at the front of the room looking back at everybody instead of being part of the group of actors. So I had an ability to understand the material and to speak the language of the actor, and also to understand the language of the playwright. And so directing became something I was instinctively good at and enjoyed
Mm.
very, very, very much. In fact, just last week, I directed a reading of a new play by a college friend of mine here in Los Angeles, and it was a trip back into my early creative life, and it was really fun and exciting and creative, and reminds me of my roots and the things that made me into who I got to be during my life.
Mm. It feels to me too that as a director, you had a bigger view as a storyteller, and still do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. When I discovered casting, which I didn't know anything about, well into my early 30s, what I discovered was that I spoke the language of the actor, and I spoke the language of the writer, and I spoke the language of the director, and so that's when I knew that I might be good at casting, because those three languages are all things you need to be fluent in to be a good casting director. You need to be able to hear the director and understand his or her vision, and you need to be able to speak to the writer and try to get them to expand their vision. And also, you, of course, need to be able to speak the language of the actor, their process, and all of the things that go into creating a performance. And I was fortunate to be fluent in all of those languages. And then I discovered casting, and I discovered that casting was a place where you needed to speak all of those languages.
Mm. And how did that happen? Was that with Marcia? Was that your first?
No, it
How did
was
that happen?
before that. It was Please don't do the math. It was early 1980, and I was at the Mark Taper Forum
That's
here in
right.
Los Angeles
That's right.
on a director's fellowship, and part of my responsibility was to direct readings of new plays, where I worked with a dramaturg from the literary department, with the casting director, with the writer, and with the actors. And it was there that I discovered that there was something called a casting director, and that I might be good at it.
Mm. And then from there, how did you transition into film and television?
Well, a dear friend of mine from college, Eileen Amy Berg, was a producer of movies for television and miniseries at ABC, and she had had a working relationship with Marcia Kleinman. And when Marcia had an opening in her office, I had already been working for the legendary Barbara Clayman, and Eileen recommended me to Marcia, and we had a meeting, and I'm so grateful, and I miss her so much.
Mm.
Marcia was the best teacher of anything I ever had, and she hired me, and I'm so grateful for that, because that gave me a kind of credibility that led to my employment at Warner Brothers under Phyllis Huffman, and that led to all of the shows I got to do, and that led to me sitting here with you all.
What were some of the things that Marcia taught you?
Well, she taught me one great fundamental thing. We were doing a comedy, and I said, "We've done mostly dramas, Marcia. How do you know how to cast a comedy?" And she said, "If they make you laugh, they get a call back, and if they don't, they don't." Well, that was kind of clear, and kind of elemental. But also, she taught me that if they make you feel, and they make you think, and they make you laugh, or they make you cry, they make you be a human being, then they have a possibility of being right for the role. Shameless plug for the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and if they don't, they don't. And also she taught me to trust my instincts and to believe that what I thought and felt and experienced was valid and real.
Yeah. It's
Thank you for asking that. Nobody has ever asked me that before, and it's a good question.
Well, you said that she taught you more than anybody else, so I was excited to hear. I love what you said about her teaching you that what you feel is valid, because that is probably the most important tool of your career as a casting director, and probably from what I'm reading in the book, as a husband, as a partner, just trusting your instincts. And there's all these stories, in this book, where it's basically, you're just talking about your instincts and your interactions with human beings.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just me and my instincts. It's you and your instincts, and you are enough. And actors need to know that they're enough, and their instincts are to be trusted, and then they need to go out and expand their imagination and their experience so that they can expand their toolbox. But wherever they are, they're enough to do lots of things.
It's so important to hear. I coach a lot of voiceover actors as well, and there's quite a number of them on the chat here. And it's the same thing across the board, probably in any art,
Yeah, and even not in art, just if you're a doctor, lawyer, or an Indian chief, if you're really going to dedicate yourself to knowing yourself and expanding yourself and being yourself, you'll be a better brother, sister, husband, father, wife, mother, partner, friend, co-worker. We all have to in order to be our best contributor and be our best self, we have to be on a journey of self-discovery and self-actualization. I know it's not a new thought, and I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm telling you that I learned it over and over again, sometimes the easy way and often the hard way.
Yeah, I was really moved when you talked about your son's leukemia, um, and how you've said throughout the book you feel like failure is just as important and challenges are just as important as good things and success, and even, you know, that you've even learned that there's no such thing as just a good thing or a bad thing. And if you can talk a little
Absolutely.
bit about that, and even
Yeah,
what you went
just
through with your
just Karen,
son.
everything is an opportunity to learn and grow. And if we dedicate ourselves to the idea that our whole lives are about learning and growing and changing and becoming more ourselves and more our better selves, um, then we wouldn't be in the terrible mess we are here in America today of division and anger and hatred and anti this and anti that and anti that, out of fear and out of not knowing anything and not knowing ourselves. Uh, uh, I strongly recommend for all of us, no matter what our endeavor, our professional endeavor is, uh, discover yourself, find yourself, be yourself, so you can be your best self with your partner and your children and your coworkers and the rest of the society that you interact with.
Thank you. It's so good to hear that. I think these kind of conversations are becoming more and more current, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think the more that we can, and I think you and I both have that in common in terms of our love of storytelling. I think that's the place where we get to share our humanity. And I think in some ways, I mean, I'm biased because I am an actor, but I think that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways for humanity to come together and meet,
Absolutely. And it's
you know,
one of the oldest ways. I mean, those crazy clowns with their flap shoes around a fireplace in, BC sometime. The stories of our lives, kings and queens and power gained and power lost, love gained and love lost. And I mean, there are only 9 stories, and we tell them over and over again in an effort to teach each other about our humanity. And I think it's more important. I think storytelling is more important than science or government or anything.
I feel that way as well. I feel that way as well. And I think for a lot of actors, we come into this art, and get involved in the business of it. And I'm wondering, I want to go back to some things about the book, but this is just coming up, so I'm going to ask this question now. I find that I get caught between, being this vulnerable artist and wanting to tell these stories that are so poignant and imperfect and human. And then there's a whole business part of it where I have to show up and be put together and not let you know, the, all the business stuff that goes on, the rejection, and the shows that aren't as meaningful to me, but I have to go in and show up for. What would you say to actors in terms of balancing keeping their artist alive so that we can bring that deep humanity to whatever we do in a business that, as you know well, is so challenging and sometimes cutthroat?
Sure. Well, while you were asking your question, I was thinking of Jackson Browne. I don't know if all of you know who that is. He was a minor rock and roll star in the 60s and 70s. But he did
One
a
of my
great song.
favorites.
He did a great song about caught between uh, the this looking for love and looking for the legal tender.
Yeah.
Uh, and legal tender is a great phrase to describe money when there's almost nothing tender about it. But we're all caught in that conflict between uh, revealing our humanity and making a living, and it's a complex issue. But my feeling is the more honest and the deeper you can connect to your work, the more likely you are to get a good fat check in the mailbox.
Yeah. I love the expression you just used, revealing our humanity. And
Yeah,
almost like I'd love to, in my own quiet world, to replace the word acting with revealing our humanity. Because
absolutely.
I think acting is not,
Connecting to our humanity and revealing our humanity. That's our job.
I love that, John. I
And
love that.
and acting. When I was a kid in New York at the Strasberg Institute briefly, there was a big sign over the stage that said, "No acting, please."
Yeah, I work with a wonderful coach. His name is Robert Colt, who not too many people know yet, and hopefully they will. But he calls it the art of not acting.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the art of connecting and being. It's the art of revealing. Those are the arts that we're really involved with. And, I strongly think if you do all that, your performance will take care of itself. The result will take care of itself. And if you're connected only to the result, how it should sound, what it should look like, when I should cry, when I should laugh, then you're doing shallow work.
yeah, yeah. Did you find in the audition room, I think so many actors, tend to look at the slug lines and look at all the directions and try and do what it says. And I would imagine that the most powerful actors in the room are the ones who didn't pay attention to a lot of those things and just allowed
Absolutely.
those things to happen as they happened.
Yeah. I mean, your mind tells you what the map of the scene is, and you do your work with your mind, but then you jump out of the airplane and pull the ripcord and hope the damn thing opens.
I heard somewhere, God, I forgot who shared this information with me. I like to credit people, but I heard that there were tests done on actors before going on to stage on Broadway, and the level of fear um, in their body was the same as young pilots taking off a plane. So I mean, scientifically, that was literally measured at some point. So what you're saying is literally true.
Yeah, well, what we do has a scary element, and
Yeah.
that's part of what's exciting about it. You know, all the things that we've experienced that have a little bit of danger are the things that are most appealing and wonderful and have the greatest
Mm,
reward
mm,
possible.
mm.
And the things that are the safest, I know she's another acting teacher and coach, but I love her dearly. Margie Haber wrote a book recently called "Fuck Your Comfort Zone," which
I haven't heard of that book.
no matter what the book says, the title is fantastic.
That is fantastic. Oh my God. Um, I wanna just talk a little bit about your work with John Wells because how can we not talk about that? Again, for people just joining, from ER to, I mean, all these iconic shows that you did with John Wells and the partnership the two of you had, and show after show that just, I think was life changing for so many people who watch these shows. And these are shows, they're not fluff. Each one of these shows that you got to do, I think are life changing.
Well,
Can you
thank you.
talk a little bit about your
I
collaboration?
agree with you. I agree with you. But I just want to point out that we also did a bunch of pilots that didn't go, so we weren't 100% You know, we didn't stand up in the baseball bat and hit home runs every day. Every once in a while, we popped up or struck out. So that happens to even the best of us. But yes, I did get an opportunity to get connected to a creative, collaborative, respectful community of artists who loved each other and made each other better at what they did, and demanded that we all care more and work harder and do better, and we did, and there's nothing more fantastic than the kind of success that we had on ER and The West Wing and China Beach and Shameless and Animal Kingdom and Southland, and just a slew of opportunities for each of us to do our best.
Do you have any memories that are fun to share on about any of those shows? I mean, you have so many. That's not a fair question. But are there any that stand out at this moment to share?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
Like when
I remember very fondly when the great and talented and spectacular Regina King came in to meet with Ann Biederman and Chris Chulak on the pilot of Southland. And she was selling a house and buying a new house, and all of her clothes were in a storage unit. And she only had one pink velour sweatsuit, which was exactly not what a police officer would look like. And yet she was able to convey to all of us that there was an essence in her of power and strength and authority, as well as vulnerability and so many other qualities. And we were so fortunate that she was available, that her manager and agent helped us make that deal. And I love Regina. I love her talent, and I love who she is personally. And we shared a lot of down years when the Lakers stunk, and now I like to get in touch with her to celebrate that the Lakers don't stink this year.
It's wonderful. Also, all the connections that just endure and endure. Oh, could you share the story about Juliana Margulies? I think it's so encouraging for actors. You know, you go in to audition for, a project, and you think you're going to be on for, one episode, and something else happens.
Well, in the great tradition of Hill Street Blues, when Charlie Haid and Mike Warren were two of the cops on their pilot show, and they were gunned down in the pilot, and they were supposed to be guest stars in the pilot, but they tested so well, and the audience loved their partnership so much. This sort of southern redneck white guy and this kind of sensitive black guy as partners who had each other's back, that they both had miraculous recoveries. And we did that same kind of a thing on ER, because our audience loved the connection between Juliana and George Clooney so much, and their failed romance, and in the pilot of ER, Juliana's character attempted suicide, and the implication in the pilot was that she was successful, and but their relationship and her character and her performance tested so powerfully, along with most of the rest of the show, that she also had a miraculous recovery, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, Juliana is her, what she did on ER and what she did after that on The Good Wife, and what she's now doing on the morning show, and she's a wonderful human being and a fantastic talent, and I'm glad she didn't kill herself.
I love that story. I love that story. I also love the story about which was the actress that didn't, Marissa Hargitay, and she
Uh-huh.
didn't get the role, and she had the balls to say, "Hey, I want to talk to John Wells," and you guys sat down with her. That is such a great story. Can you share that story as well?
Sure, and that, in the book, right, for the role, I asked a bunch of actors, directors, writers, and producers that I'd worked with to write a few sentences about their experience working with me, and none of them understood the concept of a few sentences.
Of
But
course.
Mariska was particularly uh, uh, unable to. She told that whole story. So she read for this part on ER, and then she called me the next day and asked me. And she and I had a good relationship. We'd been working together a number of times, so she had access to me. And she called me the next day and said, "How did I do?" And I said, "Well, Marish, I don't know. John hasn't called me yet to tell me who to book." And she said, "Can I talk to him?" And I was like, um, "Okay, come on in and let's see if we can get an audience with him." And she came into the office, and I called John's assistant and said, "Hey, Mariska Hargitay and I are here, and we'd like 2 minutes or 5 minutes with John. Is that possible?" And she was very reluctant because her job was to protect John from spontaneous combustion. But eventually, John, I guess, agreed, and we walked across the Warner Brothers lot to his office, and she said, honestly, asked him how she had done and what his reservations were, or what his concerns were. And he was very funny because he said, I just don't see this character as beautiful and powerful and lovely as you are. And she said, "Hey, John, I'm a effing mess inside,
Love that.
and I'd be glad to let you see that." And
Mm.
we went back to my office, and she went home, and John called me 10 minutes later and said, "Book her."
Wow.
And now she's gone on to spend, I don't know, God, 18 years on television.
Yeah.
Is it SUV or SVU? I
Yeah.
get confused.
Yeah. One of
Which
them.
one's the
Yeah.
car and which one's the television show?
I mix them up too. So, um, God, I
Oh,
think that.
somebody just put in the chat that they had worked with Jonathan Kaplan, and I love Jonathan as
Ah,
well, and I miss him with all my heart. He's a nut job and a talent and a kind of a self-destructive, noisy guy, but I never had more fun than I had with him. I remember once I suggested a veteran character actress who had something of a bad reputation for a part to Jonathan, and he said, "What, do you hate me?"
Speaking of the chat, Sally Safiati, who's a dear friend of mine, who I know you know well, has been hanging out and listening to us for a little while. I think she had to go do a pickup session for a video game, but she got that wonderful role that I also auditioned for, of the prostitute in Shameless.
Oh
And
my.
she described how lovely you guys were, the audition all the way through, and how collaborative that whole experience was.
Well, simulated sex and nudity and all that was something we really explored on Shameless. And Sally, and I'm sure you as well, committed to simulated fellatio in an audition, and it was really hard not to laugh your ass off. But you know, it, I think those of you who have the spirit of playfulness and the willingness to get to do something fun and weird and
I love how you
unusual.
say that in your book. You say they're the actors who say, I have to do this, and they're actors who say, I get to do this. That woman
Yeah,
who,
I mean,
yeah, who said, I get to take
who
my
would
shirt
ever
off,
claim to do that? Who would ever play a part where there was simulated fellatio unless you had the idea that it was fun, that it would, that it was a challenge, uh, um, and we, of course, were very experienced with
Yeah.
nudity and simulated
Very,
sex
yeah.
because Shameless had done that a lot, and we were very sensitive to how. I mean, I wouldn't do my job without my trousers on, so the idea that you might have to do yours is kind of remarkable.
Yeah. I just love that thing you wrote about actors. It's the beginning of the book about how there's some actors that say, I have to do this, and there's other actors who say, I've got to do this, no matter what it is. And that was just, I just loved how you phrased that, and how you guys could
Karen,
feel that as casting
you know,
directors.
in all of the interviews I've done, that sentence is the one that has the most resonance for everybody.
Mm, yeah, that's cool. Well, that's cool. Um, I'm going to see if there are people who have questions, and I'm going to continue to ask some of my own questions. And just in terms of, I mean, there's all the questions that the first thing I want to ask you is I love that you talk about casting as being tribal.
Yeah.
Could you talk more about that? Because I just think, I think for me, like there's questions I can ask you, like should actors do this or that? But for me, to hear your experience of your job it opens up a whole nother realm, I think, for us as actors. So
Well,
could
yeah,
you talk about that
again, thank you.
as
That's a good question.
being tribal?
Um, Development executives and current executives and heads of comedy and drama, they're all looking for what the problems are and how to fix them. And we're looking to fall in love with the project and looking for the opportunity to bring our humanity to your humanity. And they all wear nice clothes and have good expense accounts. And we all, uh, and I don't mean this in any insulting way, we're with the pigs in the mud. And there's nothing better than being in the mud with the pigs. And y'all are the pigs. I love messing around and having it be dirty and complicated and finding it together, exploring it from the point of view of it's good, and our job is to realize it, not to criticize it.
That's so great. So what I'm hearing from you is that what you are actually looking for in an audition is not the perfect gift wrapped presentation, but you're looking for the messy, you're looking for the cracks in the vase, you're looking for the humanity, it sounds to me that that's what you're looking for more than the put together nice packaged audition.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're happy to see someone who's going to give you the performance that you can rely on
Yeah.
again and again and again. That's an important part of television. But, excuse me, someone who is, willing to jump out of the airplane and hope for the best. Someone who is going to trust their instincts. Someone who's going to be a creative collaborator. Someone who's going to be fun to work with. Those are, for me, very important qualities. I don't necessarily want the result. I want the process, and I want to know that if I get to mess around with you in the process, that it's going to be an exciting, creative, collaborative experience.
God, that is so, it's just wonderful for me to hear, and I think for many actors to hear, because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to come in and do it right or do it perfect, as if there was a right way. And I
There
think,
isn't.
yeah, and I think,
You know,
go you please.
just to say, I remember when I was a kid, uh, we saw Marlon Brando turn a chair around and sit down on it like it was a horse or maybe a lover. And that's the wrong way to sit on the chair. And that wrong way was so evocative of his sexuality and his aggressive, adventurous nature. Uh, Sometimes doing it wrong is better than doing it right.
That's so cool to hear. And I also love what you're saying about when we go into a casting room, that you guys are in it with us and that it's a collaborative process. I think, again,
Oh yeah,
so many people.
and also, that's artistic and human, but it's also practical. I don't want to fail and have to spend 2 more hours in my office figuring out a session for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want to go home and have dinner with my friends and my children and my love, and that's what I'm interested in. I want to have my life, and being successful is a better avenue to having a life than being a failure.
Yeah, just and one more time, just to reiterate, I just love that for you, it's an exploratory process.
Absolutely.
Again, it's just I coach a lot of actors. I coach auditions as well, and a lot of people are looking for, should it be like this or should it be like that, and it's like, no, what can you discover? And my coach Robert Colt, that's what we're constantly looking for, that it's not a performance, but that it's an exploration. And that's the exciting thing. And that's where it feels alive, when
Absolutely.
we're exploring it together.
It's an exploration that's leading you to a performance. But if you're trying to repeat the result that you've decided is the right one, then you're tight and superficial and results oriented. And that's not much fun to watch.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, John. We're at an hour now, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, although I could talk to you for 5 more hours. Would you give everybody the information so that they can access your book? I just want to say again, you guys, this book was literally like, this has changed forever my relationship to how I approach casting, how I interact with casting directors, just the depth of humanity and artistry. And I really recommend this to anybody in the business. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book, John. And if you could tell people how they can get it and how they can have access to you.
Well, thank you, Karen. I so appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I'm so grateful for the level of your preparation, and I'm so grateful for all the people who've joined us this evening here. The book is available on Amazon. It's available as a hardcover book. It's available as a paperback. I think the hardcover is about $30, and the paperback is about $20. It's also available as an e-book, and I think that's about $10. But it's also available on my website, which is John Frank Levey, my name, and don't forget the pesky second E. That's Levey. And I will mail you an autographed copy of the book. Obviously, I don't have an e-book that I can autograph, but the paperback and the hardcover are available. It's a drop more expensive because I have to have postage and all that. Occasionally, there are copies of it at the Barnes & Noble on Ventura Boulevard, where I also sign them. They've been very good to me because I am an inveterate reader, and I've, all through the pandemic, double masked, walked in there and bought books like every Tuesday when the new books came out. My longtime partner says I kept them in business. It's probably true. But I think the most important thing is we're in it together. We're part of a collaborative community of people who care about the process. And obviously, it's great when you get a job and you book it. But if you've auditioned for a job, you've contributed to the job, and we're grateful for that. And I wrote the book not really knowing what impact it would have, but I'm so grateful that it's landing on people, and that it's contributing to people's demystifying the role of the casting director and understanding that we are collaborative and artistic people who are in it with you. And I hope you'll see us that way. I'm grateful for any attention, and I would love to, I'm on Instagram, John_Frank_Levey, Levey, and I'd be very happy to have you follow me and communicate with me there. This has been a delight and a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to you, Karen, for inviting me, and so grateful to all of you for paying attention and caring.
I have one more question. John, what's next for you?
Well, the world has changed.
Yeah.
And despite my long experience and considerable success, I'm not the flavor of the month, and I'm okay with that. I'm older, and I'm white, and I'm male, and I'm straight, and none of those things are particularly valued commodities anymore. That said, I got 2 inquiries on Friday evening about feature films that people are interested in my possibly casting. My wonderful associates, Kim Wong and Tony Tamietti, keep yelling at me, "You can't retire, God damn it, shut up," about that. So I'm available and interested in doing the projects that might excite me. I don't want to do anything just to do a job and get a check.
Yeah.
But if an exciting project comes along and values my experience and my expertise, I would be thrilled to go back to work.
Would you ever direct, theater or otherwise?
Theater for sure. It's too late for television.
Yeah.
I had my chances, and I worked hard enough as a casting director in prep, and directors work in prep, production, and post. And at this point in my life, that's more than I want to engage.
Yeah. Well, John, I want to thank, you've contributed to me immensely, and I want to acknowledge that. You've literally changed my whole perspective, unconscious and conscious perspective, on so many things. Thank you for your tremendous heart. Thank you for your humanity. Thank you for holding art and keeping art in the place that it should be. Thank you for your embracing of the humanity of actors, your invitation for our humanity, and for your love as a father, as a partner, as a businessman, and your care and your heart. Thank you.
You're welcome. Karen, I really didn't have any choice. It's the only way I could do it.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
Well, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to read your book, and I'm honored to have this conversation with you. I'm really honored. So thank you.
Thank you. Please let me know when it drops so that I can tell my followers.
Yeah, I will. I will share it. I'm going to share it right away on my feed, because when I save it, it shares right away. And then what I'll do is eventually I'll be able to put it on YouTube and also send it to you. As I figure out the technicalities, I'll make sure you get a copy and everyone else does.
Well, as you discovered at the beginning of our talk, I'm a Luddite, and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
I'm only like a millimeter ahead of you in that department. So.
All right.
All right.
Thanks all for listening and paying attention and giving a damn. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a lovely evening, and thank you again, John. Good night.